Senate Bill 3 by Representative Bentley to prohibit discrimination or provincial treatment by the state of Arkansas and other public entities.
Representative Bentley, you're recognized to explain your bill.
Thank you, Speaker. Colleagues, in the early 1960s, President Lyndon Johnson, with most of his support coming from Republicans, passed the Civil Rights Act. That law reversed years of mandated discrimination. Johnson recognized at the time two distinct populations in America, black and white. And as a provisional remedy, Johnson signed a limited executive order to affirmatively assist minorities as they seek to enroll in higher education and to obtain employment. Thus was the start of affirmative action. I think we all would agree it was the right move at that time. Now, 60 years later, we are dramatically different. While we do have pockets of racism remaining in our nation, the notion that America is a racist country is simply false. For those specific instances of hatred that persist, we have powerful state and federal anti-discrimination laws to fight that. No one discredits the horror of segregation and the harm that it did to the people in that time period. But it is time for us to move forward. In a historic decision, the Supreme Court severely limited, if not effectively ended, the use of affirmative action in college admissions. By a vote of 6-3, the justices ruled that the admission programs used by the University of North Carolina and Harvard College violate the Constitution's Equal Protection Clause, which bars racial discrimination by government entities. On the 21st day of this January, President Trump rescinded Johnson's abused executive order, and he filed the presidential actions ending illegal discrimination and restoring merit based on opportunity. And I'm going to read some of the president's executive order. Long-standing federal civil rights laws protect individual Americans from discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. These civil rights protections serve as a bedrock supporting equality of opportunity for all Americans. As president, I have solemn duty to ensure that these laws are enforced for the benefit of all Americans. Yet today, roughly 60 years after the passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, critical and influential institutions of American society, including the federal government, major corporations, financial institutions, the medical industry, large commercial airlines, law enforcement agencies, and institutions of higher education have adopted and actively used dangerous, demeaning, and immoral race and sex-based preferences under the guise of so-called diversity, equity, and inclusion. These illegal policies also threaten the safety of American men, women, and children across the nation by diminishing the importance of individual merit, aptitude, hard work, and determination when selecting people for jobs and services in key sectors of American society, including all levels of government and the medical, aviation, and law enforcement communities. Yet, in case after tragic case, the American people have witnessed firsthand the disastrous consequences of illegal, pernicious discrimination that has prioritized how people were born instead of what they're capable of doing. The federal government is charged with enforcing our civil rights laws, and the purpose of this order is to ensure that it does so by ending illegal preferences and discrimination. It is the policy of the United States to protect civil rights of all Americans and to promote individual initiative, excellence, and hard work. It is time for Arkansas to catch up with the federal law and eliminate state-sanctioned discrimination and preferential treatment. SB 3 does exactly that. So we look at SB 3. I'm going to read the first legislative intent. The General Assembly intends for this act to prohibit discrimination by public entities on the basis of race, sex, color, ethnicity, or national origin. The General Assembly does not intend for this act to affect any preferences provided to veterans under the law based on their status as a veteran. So I'm going to touch on Section 2 where we have some misunderstanding about the liquor licenses, the liquor law. What that does actually is defend small business. It makes a better definition so that small businesses are protected. We had some folks that came to the House side yesterday to say that somehow this negatively impacted small business, but I have checked, and I can promise you, every one of you know that this negatively impacted liquor licenses. You would have heard from 1 million folks, and I have not heard from a single one, so it does not negatively impact small business. We go through the rest of the law, and it just puts out equity and puts out equality through there for the next few pages versus Section 3 and 4. And we'll see Section 5 is deleted. It was a teacher administrative recruitment and retention plan. And I know that we had a lot of discussion on that yesterday in committee, but I know every one of you talked to your superintendents, and they are actively doing retention and recruitment plans for their teachers there on an active basis. I know my teachers there in the small districts have put in a 4-day work week so they can retain and keep teachers there, and it's done a lot for them. So nothing is stopping our superintendents to do a retention and a retaining plan. All right, so moving through there, we get rid of affirmative action and Department of Education's different things that they were doing. Section 6 just gets rid of unnecessary reporting done by the Department of Education and affirmative action programs in Section 8. And again, we'll get to Section 9, we're replacing minority with critical needs, because I know all of you know that we don't want to stop any programs. We want to make those go to all our constituents. So we're ending nothing. We're enhancing what we're doing to make sure every child in Arkansas that has a critical need is able to get that critical need met as they need it. We want all of our kids to succeed, and that's exactly what we're doing through this program. Get on to page 11. I want to read what it says there. And it says, prohibition of discrimination or preferential treatment by state entities. As used in this section, state means the state of Arkansas, a city, a county, an institution of higher education, a public school district, a special school district, a political subdivision, or governmental instrumentality of the state. The state shall not discriminate or grant preferential treatment to an individual or group on the basis of race, sex, color, ethnicity, or national origin in matters of state employment, public education, or state procurement. And then it states some things that it does not apply to, and we can read those as well. And it does give a civil cause of action for those who feel that they've been discriminated against. I believe this law is just exactly what we're needing in Arkansas at this time. All right. I just want to say a couple of things about this bill, and just kind of answer a couple of the questions that were asked in committee yesterday as well. Nothing in this bill is going to stop Girls Club or STEM clubs there at school. It's just going to encourage us to have equal opportunity for all of our students. It's not going to stop mentorship of girls at school. We have powerful state and federal laws to protect students and employees in place if they're feeling they're been discriminated against. SB 3 does not remove any of these. And I also want to go over section we had Representative Mayberry brought up, and I visited with Secretary Lever at least 30 minutes yesterday to go, does any of this stop any of the things that we're doing with an IEP or a 504 or accessibility for disabled children that are in our schools or people that are employed by the state? And it does not do anything to touch that. We have the American Disabilities Act. It's not under the Department of Education. So if if Trump ends the Department of Education, it's not going to do away with the American Disabilities Act. We still have all of that in place. We're taking care of our disabled folks to make sure they have accessibility to school, accessibility to work. It does not do anything to affect the American Disabilities Act. Let's see. Let's discuss there. I think that's it, and I'll go ahead and take some questions. I know there's maybe some questions. I'd be happy to answer any questions that folks have got.
Representative Springer, for what purpose?
Question.
You're recognized for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a whole lot of questions regarding this bill. However, there's some in particular that I would like to get a response to. With respect to the division of elementary and secondary education, could you explain to me, and what data do you have to require for you to believe that there's a need to change Equity Assistance Center to Equality Assistance Center, and then you go on toward the end of that where you change, you propose to change that the Equity assistance center designed to provide assistance to school districts of the state in such activities as affirmative action, program accessibility, human relations, awareness, and you strike those and you put desegregation and non-discrimination. Could you please explain to me why you...
I think that because it better aligns with where we are federally now, we're getting rid of affirmative action. We'll make sure we're not doing discriminating against anyone. I think it better decides we want to protect every student in Arkansas and make sure every teacher and student is excelling. So that's why we changed those words, because it better aligns with what we're doing federally, getting rid of the...
So you're saying equality better aligns with getting rid of discrimination instead of the
yes,
word...
because we want everyone to be treated equally, so we're getting rid of...
Instead of the word equity versus equality?
We're replacing equity with equality because we want every child in the state treated equally, yes.
Representative Eaton, for what purpose?
Question.
You're recognized for a question.
Kind of going on along with that equity versus equality. Currently, that board does oversee things such as, if I should back up, I have a daughter with special needs, that's where I'm coming from with this one. Along that is who the school system would ask if they are following proper protocol, would be that equity or the equality assistance center. And a small thing, equity is specific needs, and equality is everyone's the same. So it seems to me that would be a better use of the word equity there instead of equality.
Again, we have the American Disabilities Act to make sure our kids, and so in my mind, a child that's disabled is not equal yet. They need a little more help to become equal. So in order for those disabled kids to become equal, we've got to do special things for those kids. That's why we call it critical needs and being equal. So those kids that are disabled, maybe they need a ramp, maybe they need headphones, whatever that child needs to be equal with the other students in class, that's what we're going to provide.
Well, but I think that's what equity means versus equality.
I visited with Secretary Lever at length yesterday, our Department of Education secretary, and he said this in no way hinders what's happening with our disabled children in school, and he assured me of that. Okay. And I trust Secretary Lever to make sure, he's a man of his word, we would not be passing this if it hurt our disabled kids.
Yes, ma'am. And the last thing, it's stricken out program accessibility, which I think also speaks to that. I'm not sure why that's stricken out.
Again, we want to make sure all kids are treated equal. If you have the line, show me a page and what
yes,
line there, because I
ma'am,
want to treat it better.
That is section 3. It's on page 2. It
Thank
starts
you.
line
That helps
1,
me.
runs through page, in line 6, what I'm specifically speaking of.
So again, we are going to make sure these kids' IEPs and 504s are followed, and I don't see that this is going to hinder that in any way. So, and I can have a visit with you with Secretary Lever if you need to assure you. But I visit with him to make sure all of our disabled kids will be able to get everything that they need to make sure they're getting the education that they deserve.
Thank you. One follow-up.
You're recognized for a follow-up.
And the last thing, is it prudent to do this before we get that lined up?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand your question.
Okay, sorry. You were going to get with Mr. Levin and make sure that everything was going to be taken care of. Is it prudent to stricken this prior to getting that?
I'm still not understanding your question. I'm sorry.
Okay, I guess we are just supposed to. What if Mr. Oliva leaves?
Well, then we can do something to fix it. That's what we're here for.
Thank you.
Representative Dalby, for what purpose?
Question?
You're recognized for a question.
Thank you. Representative Bentley, you and I have talked about this, and and we've talked about it the other day. I just want to make sure you feel comfortable that any programs that we have for our disabled or our blind, like the blind services and those kinds of things, you and I visited about that and how that we have some special programs encouraging the state to employ those. And I know on page 10 at the very bottom it says the state of Arkansas does not discriminate in access to employment opportunities or in employment or practices based on race, color, religion, sex, national origin, age, disability, or genetic information. And so we're
I
still
feel
good
very
with
comfortable
that?
after, yeah, I do. I think our American Disabilities Act fully covers those people, and we don't want to discriminate on anyone based on their disability as well, right? So if they feel they're being discriminated against, they're able to file a civil cause of action if they feel like they're being discriminated against.
Sure. Follow up.
You're
And-
recognized.
And I understand that, and I appreciate that. But you know, my question is a little more tailored to some of the specific programs that the state has,
Right?
to encourage people to hire those who may be visually impaired and all that. And you're comfortable that we can still do that as a state?
I do. I am.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the question.
Representative Steele, for what purpose?
Question.
You're recognized for a question.
Representative, what impact will this legislation, if passed, have on the state budget?
No fiscal impact that I see. I was not shown any fiscal impact whatsoever on this.
Well, those programs that are earmarked for minorities, they will no longer exist. Is that correct?
We're still going to meet critical need areas. I think we're going to continue to meet the needs of our impoverished kids and kids that are struggling. We're just not going to do it based on somebody's race, color, or sex. We're going to continue to meet those critical needs areas. So we're continuing to spend those funds where we need to make sure every child in Arkansas succeeds. That's my goal, and every individual in Arkansas can succeed. We don't want to end any programs. To me, we're expanding them to critical need areas, no matter what the person's gender or sex may be, or race.
Well, kind of let me rephrase then, if I could, Mr. Speaker.
You're recognized for a follow-up.
Those programs that are specifically designed for minority students, women, and others, those programs can no longer exist under this legislation if passed, correct?
If they're based on sex or if they're based on someone's skin color, yes, but we're going to continue, if you look through there, we're going to continue to meet critical needs areas. So
those programs would have to change. Am I correct in that?
yes, to make sure they're not discriminating against anyone.
But
yes.
this bill does not change those programs. So those minority scholarship programs, HBCU programs that provide scholarships and fundings for minority students, those minority teacher recruitment programs will still exist even if this legislation passes. Is that correct?
As long as they're not marked out, yes, and we're placing things with those kids that are needs, crisis needs. So give me a page and a line, because I'm kind of getting...
Okay, I'm going to do that in just a second. So what would happen to those resources that are appropriated and dedicated to those specific programs?
They're still going to be used, because instead of minority, we're using critical needs areas. So we're still going to recruit teachers to teach in critical need areas. So we'll still be using those funds in critical need areas.
Okay,
So it's not going to change anything.
So those federal programs now, if you look on page 11 on line 36, and then on the next page on line 1. And I'm speaking specifically about the federal programs. That's pretty much the same thing,
Right.
that
So
provides revenues into the state,
Right.
specifically for disadvantaged young people, specifically in the higher education realm.
Okay, so if we go and look at line 30, it says this section does not. So those things underneath there do not. This section does not prohibit an action necessary to establish or maintain eligibility for a federal program if ineligibility would demonstrably result in a loss of federal funds to the state. So this will not affect that.
Representative Steele, let me hold you there for just a moment. Representative
Yes, sir.
Ferguson, you had stood earlier. Did you have a question?
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Steele, I'll come back to you. Let me get him. I'll come right back to you. Representative Ferguson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Bentley, just a clarification. You are on page 11.
Yes,
Can you go
sir.
to page 11, please, line 31 through 33, where it says that this section does not
Correct.
prohibit the consideration by the state of bona fide qualifications based on sex that are reasonably necessary to the normal functions of state employment, public education, or state procurement. I believe this is saying that this section does not prohibit these actions. Am I correct?
Yes, sir, you're correct.
Okay. So when I go up a paragraph to line 24 through line 27,
Yes, sir.
it said the state shall not discriminate against or grant preferential treatment to an individual, group, on the basis of race, sex, color, ethnicity, or national origin in matters of state employment, public education, or state procurement. Okay. Now, I want to go up one more deal, and then I'll get to my question.
Okay.
In Section 20, you reference a particular code concerning the award procedures for public improvements. Generally, is amendment to read as follows: no contract providing for the making of major repairs or alterations for the erections of buildings or other structures, or for making other permitted improvements shall be entered into by the state, any agency of the state, any county, municipality, or school districts, or other local taxing unit. And then you put in there something like $75,000. And my question is, in this section at 31, there is a exception for sex. This section does not, line 30 through 33, this section does not prohibit the consideration by the state of bona fide qualifications based on sex that are reasonably necessary to the normal functions of state employment and public education or state procurement. I ask that question because in my some 26 years of HR experience with the city of Pine Bluff, we came across some of those same situations, but here you have a exception for sex that does not exist in the body of this bill. Could you elaborate on that for me, please?
Well, just there may be a point where there's a bona fide qualification based on sex to make a specific sex better for that job. And so we want things based on merit and qualifications. So there may be an instance where that is actually true, so, but very limited. So, and then we have, again, someone can sue a civil cause of action if they feel like they've been discriminated against.
So there is an exception for sex in this body.
Yes, I see. That's
That the
what's on
state
page.
of Arkansas and only the state of Arkansas can take advantage of, and any public education system.
Yes.
If the state believes that there's a normal function or
It's necessary for normal
necessary
function. Mm-hmm.
But in the other bodies of this document, sex is alleviated.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Again, there's going to be rare instances where this would be used. That's all I'm saying. So it's just making with a rare instance, or it may be better for that position for that person. So.
One follow-up question. So.
And I'm sorry that I can't give you an exact example.
But one follow-up question.
You're recognized.
So, when you look at the exception of sex, it could be male or female, that the state and only the state can use this as a example. Not a city, not a county, but only the state.
That's how it's written. Yes, sir.
That's how it's written. Okay. Thank you.
Representative Allen, for what purpose?
Question.
You're recognized.
Representative Bentley.
Yes, sir.
Recently, I received several phone calls from the Highway Department. As you know, they have a lot of female contractors out there. So can you tell me what impact would this bill have on the female contractors at the Highway Department?
If they're doing a great job, it should have absolutely no impact on them. If they do a good bid and put in a good bid and do a good job, I can't see it's going to affect them at all.
Well, follow up, Mr.
Recognized.
What was told to me was that this bill will have a direct impact on female contractors and women contractors because they have given some preferential treatment because they were minorities. So tell me, will this bill withstand the test out at the Highway Department?
They will no longer be given preferential treatment. If they provide a good job at a good price, they're willing to bid for that contract just about like anybody else. And I think I'm done with questions, but thank you, sir.
Representative Bentley has explained the bill. Would anyone like to speak against the bill? Representative Allen, you're recognized to speak against the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Colleagues, I was in this well less than 24 months ago addressing the same issues with this particular bill. Make no mistake about it. Nothing has changed. My colleague, Representative Bentley, and I are real good friends, and we're prayer partners. But she is saying to us today that discrimination does not exist in the state of Arkansas. What you need to do is just take a look around you. Any person looking at me right now can tell me what color I am. And a lot of times people are judged and based on the color of their skin. That's just human nature. So discrimination in this state still exists. In a perfect world, it wouldn't exist. But we wouldn't have a perfect world. We don't have a perfect world because we don't have perfect people. So we're going to always have discrimination. And the reason why these laws were put in place in the first place was to make sure that the playing field was level for everybody that wanted to live in the United States and that wanted to do business in the United States. This is not going to go away. Let me tell you something. If my doctor take my chart and say, just scratch out the name cancer in my chart, my cancer is not going to go away. I'm still going to have cancer. And that's the way it is with this bill. And let me tell you about this. When I was at Little Rock Central High School, I had the pleasure of meeting Daisy Bates. She came to Little Rock Central High School. They got me out of the classroom because they wanted me to meet with Daisy Bates. I went to a meeting with Daisy Bates, and she said this to me. She said, "Do you know how you got here?" I said, "Yes, ma'am. I know how I got to Little Rock Central High School." She said, "You rode the backs of the Little Rock Nine, L.C. Bates, and many other people in the community that fought for me to get here at Little Rock Central High School, to lace up my tennis shoes, run out on the court, and play basketball. If it wasn't for the Little Rock Nine, that wouldn't have happened for me." So I'm saying to you today, the Little Rock Nine, when they tried to get into Little Rock Central High School, they had to fight to get in there. They had to fight because they were excluded. And exclusion still exists in our society today. And I keep saying over and over again, it's not going to go away. And let me tell you about affirmative action. Affirmative action does not give me any special privileges. All it does is just level the playing field, and it gives me an opportunity to apply for a job just like non-minorities. It's not going to take anything from non-minorities. And I don't know why we continue to introduce bills like this and play tricks with each other's mind. Helen Keller said it best. She said the only thing worse than a man that's blind is a man that cannot see, but have eyes that cannot see. And we all can see that this is not a good bill. Now, if you want to sit here and pretend like it's a good bill, we could do that all day long. But it's not going to go away. When I was first hired with a pharmaceutical company in White County Hospital, East Ray Street. When I walked in there and started calling on different divisions of the hospital, everybody in the hospital could look at me and tell that I was black. I had a difficult time calling on hospitals. And let me tell you this. The only reason why I was successful was because when I called on White County Hospital, there was a guy that was hospital administrator there. And he said, Fred Allen, you've been calling on this hospital now for over 2 months. I said, yes, sir, I have. He said, you're not making any headway. I said, no, sir, I'm not. He said, can you come to my office on Tuesday morning at 11 o'clock? Don't come at 11:05. Be here at 11 o'clock. I got there at 11 o'clock. And he said, I want to take you into the cafeteria, and I'm going to introduce you to the purchasing department, the pharmacist, all the doctors. He said, I want them to treat you like they treat all the other sales rep that come in this hospital. But y'all saying discrimination don't exist in Arkansas, but it does. It was only because Mr. Albert Pilkington, who was the hospital administrator, opened the doors for me at White County Hospital. Otherwise, I wouldn't have made it. I was married with a family, and they all had decided that Fred Allen was not going to make it in rural Arkansas. So what he did for me in White County, opened up doors, not just in White County, opened up doors in Independence County, St. Francis County, and other counties around the state of Arkansas. But it would not have happened if it wasn't for one person, and that was Mr. Pilkington. That's your grandfather. Your grandfather paved the way for me. And all I'm saying is this. We're going to have discrimination. So don't pretend like it doesn't exist. It's going to always exist. But what we need to make sure that things like this don't happen in the state of Arkansas. It's not going to go away. You take away all the affirmative action, the entities that were identified in affirmative action, it's still going to exist because we don't have a perfect world. So my request for you all today is to vote no on this bill. And sometimes it's difficult to do what's right when you're trying to hold party lines. I know, Mr. Speaker, there were times when my party got mad at me and angry with me because I voted for the hate crime bill, because I voted for taxes. But guess what? I did not do the wrong thing. I did the right thing. And sometimes when you're trying to do the right thing, my mother always told me this, you hear me say this in the past, if you want to be strong, lift something heavy. And this is a heavy lift. So I ask you all to lift something heavy, lift this bill up, and do what's right and vote against it. Thank you.
Representative Allen has spoke against the bill. Would anyone like to speak for the bill? Would anyone like to speak against the bill? Representative Shepard, you're recognized to speak against the bill.
Colleagues, I rise before you today not only as a legislator, but as a black woman. I rise before you today as a daughter of the South. I come from a family of farmers, factory, steel workers, out of Lonoke County. I also rise before you today as someone who knows deep down within her bones what it feels like to have laws used against you that closes doors of opportunities instead of opening doors of opportunities. Many of you met my father when I was sworn in for my first term. You thanked him for his service, a 3-tour veteran. My father served in Afghanistan, Desert Storm, and Iraq, a first sergeant. My father taught me to believe in the American dream, that if you show up to work on time, you work hard, you outperform everybody else, you'll have a fair shot in life. Well, colleagues, let me be clear about something here today. Not everyone has had a fair shot in life. My grandmother did not get a fair shot. My mother did not get a fair shot in life. And if we pass this legislation here today, there will be Arkansans for generations to come that will not get a fair shot in life. Now, I know there are some in the chamber that argue race and gender no longer matters. We don't need these protections anymore. Well, I beg to differ, colleagues. Walk a mile in my shoes for just one day. When you got to show up at your committee meeting and you're the only black person on the committee, feeling like you got the weight of the world on your shoulders, feeling like you got to prove yourself 2 times over. Or walk a mile in the shoes of a parent that when their son goes out into the world, they got to pray to God that he comes home at night. Or walk a mile in the shoes of a mother that has to look a little girl in the eyes and tell her she's got to work twice as hard as her male peer and expect half the recognition growing up in life. This legislation claims to ban discrimination and special treatment. Ban discrimination and special treatment against who? What this legislation does is it ties our hands. It takes our power away. When disparities exist, when farmers or other businesses can't get loans or contracts, when communities began to fall further behind, when women are paid less for the same amount of work, this legislation puts a target on the backs of decent, hard-working Arkansans. Every Arkansan deserves a fair shot at a quality education, affordable health care, a good-paying job, a life filled with opportunities and possibilities. But this legislation ties our hand. I ask you, colleagues, be on the right side of history today. Stand for the hard-working, decent folks of Arkansas that sent you down here. Don't turn your backs on them.
Representative Shepherd has spoke against the bill. Would anyone like to speak for the bill? Anyone like to speak for the bill? Representative Torres, you're recognized to speak for the bill.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, House members. I'll just tell you that long before I was ever recognized as representative, I was called wetback, Mexican, was told that I should sit in back of the pickup instead of in the cab of the pickup because that was my rightful place. I was told by my high school counselor that I shouldn't even consider college because I wasn't college material. Consequently, I mailed her 3 announcements, graduation announcements. I got a bachelor's and 2 master's degrees. And I'll tell you what led me up to this is my grandfather, Domingo Torres, a second-generation little Mexican man that told me once, he said, son, he said, don't ever let anyone or anything make you a victim. Don't ever let anyone or anything ever make you a victim. Now let me tell you about this little Mexican man named Domingo Torres. In the 3rd grade, his dad abandoned the family, left him and his mom and his 2 sisters. So he quit school, grabbed a burlap bag, went out, picked cotton to help his mom raise his siblings. He forfeited his education so his siblings could get theirs. When he passed away, he was an illiterate, well-respected, bank board millionaire in my community. Because he said, son, he said, excuses will only beget more excuses. He said, it takes effort. And if you give it all your effort, opportunities will come to you. I'll fast forward to my life. Even though my grandpa did everything extremely well, I grew up in a home where my electricity was disconnected from time to time because my parents couldn't pay the electric bill, only to find myself in the classroom the next day being ridiculed by one of my classmates because it was his dad that had to leave the baseball game early to go reconnect my electricity. I grew up in a home without a phone during all 4 years of my high school life, and back then that was the only way you could foster relationships, you know. I get to college, I had zero, not a penny's worth of help from my family to go to school. I worked my tail off because I wanted a different life. My first career, professional career, when I was the first one to get a college degree in my family, my first professional career was not a burlap bag like my grandfather, it was a Walmart bag in these 2 hands. And the opportunity that came to me when I was scrounging for loose change underneath the car seat for my next meal was to go pick up trash on a high-end condominium across the sorority houses in College Station. And so every day I walked that property and I picked up every cigarette butt, beer bottle, and you name it, and that place was extremely clean. And it led to another property and another property. Then it went commercial. And my wife and I would wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and go out and pick up trash on commercial properties that included junior colleges and bars. 3 o'clock in the morning, we'd go do that, she and I, picking up trash, okay? We worked hard, we invested everything we had, and at the age of 31, I was retired. That's when I moved to Siloam Springs. I was financially free. Because the principle that my grandpa gave me, he said, son, it's not excuses that are going to get you forward in life, it's effort. I'm opposed to any governmental architecture that continues to make you and others victims. Ask for a good vote on this bill.
Representative Torres has spoke for the bill. Would anyone like to speak against the bill? Would anyone like to speak for the bill? Representative Ferguson, recognized to speak against the bill.
Good afternoon, colleagues. I've been here for some 5 terms, 10 years. And you've probably never seen me come down here to speak against somebody's bill. I don't think that Representative Bentley is trying to destroy the civil rights of Arkansans. He's not that kind of person. However, I have some issues with this legislation. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. I came to work for the city of Pine Bluff in 1981. I was the city's public relations equal opportunity fair housing officer. A year later, I became the human resource director for some 26 years. I spent 4 years in federal court defended the city on civil rights cases testifying in federal court. I began to ask department heads and city government. I said, I send you time and time again good qualified individuals, young men, women, black, white, and yes, Hispanic, and you refuse it. They said to me, Ken, well, I'm not racist. I said, I know that. I know you love the Lord, and I know you go to church. But they said, I just feel like hiring people that look like me. I was the only one that looked like me. So that became a challenge. I want to ask you, before I do that, I asked Representative Bentley, when she comes back to the well to close, I'd like Representative Bentley just make a few comments. When I asked the question on page 11, where you give the state of Arkansas a preference of sex if they can come up with a qualified, bona fide situation. But in the body of this bill, you don't give the same preference to cities and counties. I want you to expound on it. Now, I'm not going to be long, but I'll say this. As a young child, I can remember riding in the back of the bus. I can remember using colored bathrooms. But I was at Cress's department store in Pine Bluff, Arkansas. And the colored water fountain wasn't working. So I used the white water fountain. An elderly white gentleman grabbed me and my mother grabbed him, and I thought we both was going to jail that day. But what I'm saying is, there are a number of Arkansans still. I left the city in 2007, and I was still having issues with hiring practices, and how sometimes women were having issues with harassment, sexual harassment, that I had to deal with in 2007. But there are still people that are trying to get a drink of water, and the water fountain is broke. So, you know what's in the bill. I ask you, if you desire to vote no, present, or just go to the bathroom. Thank you for your time, colleagues. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Ferguson has spoke against the bill. Would anyone like to speak for the bill? Representative Brown, you're recognized to speak for the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to read Section 1 of the 14th Amendment. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the law. As citizens and lawmakers, we are obligated to follow the Constitution of the United States. Discrimination is a problem in the heart, but it has no place in our government policies, practices, and statutes. I ask for a good vote. Thank you.
Representative Brown has spoke for the bill. Would anyone like to speak against the bill? Representative Gonzalez-Worthen, you're recognized to speak against the bill.
Thank you, Speaker. Representative Bentley mentioned that we would be looking at critical needs when it comes to educators, administrators, and the like. What are those critical needs in the state of Arkansas? When we look at the demographics of our students and our teachers, 62% of our students are white, Caucasian. 90% of our teachers are white, Caucasian. When we look at our African American population, we have 20% African American students and 7% African American teachers. We have 12% Hispanic students and 1% Hispanic teachers. We have 1%, this is statewide, Hawaiian Pacific Islanders, and 0.01% of teachers. Now you might think, well, that's who's applying, that's who was hired, but let me tell you what has happened and what has been occurring in Northwest Arkansas. When I moved here in 1996, Northwest Arkansas experienced the largest immigration wave ever. Many jobs were filled. All you had to do is look around at the poultry plants, agriculture, construction, service, etc. Because the students were from different cultural backgrounds, language backgrounds, our teachers did not know how to work with the students. And so as a result, not intended, I am sure not intended, but one day as I was teaching, a student came up to me and said, I want to learn about scholarships. And I said, well, the scholarship coordinator is going to all of the classrooms and mentioning about scholarships. How can you apply? Well, I haven't heard anything. Another one of my students later, I would like to know about scholarships. No one, again, this happened all day long because the scholarship coordinator had been going to the classes. At the end of the day, it puzzled me. I was thinking, what was going on here? And at the end of the day, I happened to come across the scholarship coordinator. And I asked her, I said, by the way, I have some students that are interested in going to college and they would like information. And I don't know what's happened, but they don't have that information. And she said, I've gone to all of the English classes. They all have the information. I said, well, I'm just telling you, my science students do not have that information. Well, what students are you talking about? And I said, they're my ESL, English as a Second Language, biology students. Oh, those students, well, they're not going to college because they don't speak English. And I said, we have English as a second language in our schools. They're learning English, and it does take time. But as teachers, as educators, what we have done is we have inspired them to continue their education. Yes, we know they need to learn English, and that's what we're doing, but they cannot be negated. We need them to have the scholarship information as well. And she did. She did provide the scholarship information. She was not happy about it, but she understood. That was one of the things that I had faced over and over, time and time again, because of this. And the school district, and currently in Northwest Arkansas, we have school districts that have very diverse populations, and you see the same type of disparity within the teacher workforce. I'm concerned about that because the minority teacher and administrator preparation recruitment strategic plan that was striked out, that was one of the things that has helped us to increase our population of teachers, where the teachers have that same background of the students. They can relate to the students. We already know that. Research shows that teachers who share the same language or cultural backgrounds of their students, they are able to support them because they have had those same experiences. And so currently in Springdale, my district, District 9, there are 32% white Caucasian teachers, 91% white teachers, 48% Hispanic students, 4% Hispanic teachers, 14% Hawaiian Pacific Islander students, 0.1% Hawaiian Pacific Islander teachers, 2% black students, 2% black teachers, 2% Asian students, 1% Asian teachers. Because there has been an emphasis on this minority recruitment plan, our numbers have gone up in some of those areas, and we need this. We need this to continue so that our students will be able to attain and get that same access that everybody else has. And so I am asking you, my colleagues, to really consider those disparities that we have in pockets of our state of Arkansas, and additionally looking at the whole state of Arkansas. If we were not ranked 43rd in the nation, I would say, well, maybe we are now equalized across the board, but we're not. We still have areas and many opportunities to move forward. And so please consider, and I would ask you to vote no against Senate Bill 3. Thank you.
Representative Gonzalez-Worthen has spoke against the bill. Would anyone like to speak for the bill? Representative Long, you are recognized to speak for the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Earlier, someone mentioned that what's changed from 2023 when this bill had been heard before, because it's basically the same bill. And there is one thing that has changed. In 2023, or June of 23, the Supreme Court ruled that affirmative action is unconstitutional. That's a major thing. I think we have no choice but to pass this bill, because to go on as we are now, our current laws are unconstitutional. I'd ask you to vote for the bill.
Representative Long has spoke for the bill. Would anyone like to speak against the bill? Representative Barnett, you're recognized to speak against the bill.
Thank you, Speaker. Before Representative Bentley left the podium, I was going to ask her a couple of simple questions. And the first question was if she was aware that the state of Arkansas has the highest maternal mortality rates in this nation. And then I was going to follow that question with asking her, did she know that pregnant black mothers are dying at twice the rate as pregnant white women in this state? I say that to say racial disparities exist, and they are real, and this bill ignores that. Senate Bill 3 ignores the fact that the playing field in our society is not leveled. It disregards the reality of bias, and it falsely perpetuates itself as a bill that seeks to do good rather than harm. This bill will reduce and remove needed mandates that were put into place to level the uneven ground that continues to exist in today's society at large, which includes life here in Arkansas. To pass this bill into law would be a regressive step in our state's history. The truth is, life is not always fair, but we all have a moral obligation to use our actions for good by making the effort to make life more fair. Your decision today will have a far-reaching impact on and in the lives and futures of not just yourselves, but on and in the lives of the very people of this state who entrusted you to represent them, their families, friends, neighbors, and even their foes. This includes men, women, people of color, people of all races, colors, creeds, and different abilities. Not just those that look like you, not just those that think like you, and it most certainly includes those who differ from the majority of this state and this nation. It includes minorities of every kind, minorities whose lived realities and lived life experiences are real, undeniable, and worthy of consideration, compassion, and care from this state and from this legislative body. To pass this bill would leave a stain of unrighteousness, a stain of injustice, and a stain of total disregard for the factual need of equity in our state's practices and operations. To vote for this bill will return us to the likes of an era in the past. I implore you to think wisely before taking your vote today. Some argue that this bill is a needed step forward. I beg to differ. If this legislative body affirms SB 3 with a majority vote, it will cause us as a state to revisit the trials of days past. And perhaps that's what some may want. Either way, this state's fate rests in the collective hands of this body. Let's do the right thing by not voting for a harmful bill cloaked in a lie of equality. For this bill is truly a wolf poorly disguised as a sheep. Equality cannot exist apart from equity. And for that reason, I'll be voting no. Thank you.
Representative Barnett has spoke against the bill. Would anyone like to speak for the bill? Would anyone like to speak against the bill? Representative Bentley, you're recognized to close for your bill.
Colleagues, thank you for your time. It's a very important decision. And my friend Ken Ferguson, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for that hateful white man and what he did to you. And it was wrong. And I'm sorry for what happened to you. This bill, I want to tell you, it ends affirmative action. It strengthens our discrimination laws. It makes them more powerful. It does not stop us being able to make sure that we're not being discriminated against. I want to assure you of that. And for my friends that are still concerned about hurting disabled children, I was blessed to work at Arkansas Children's Hospital for 14 years. There is nothing more important to me than disabled kids. I have fought for them, worked hours on end to make sure those kids are okay, and I would not for a millisecond support a bill that would hurt any disabled kids or any disabled Arkansan, period. I would not do it. And I have been assured, again, by Secretary Leva that it will not hurt our disabled kids, and I trust him. I think our LEARNS Act is going to go a long way, much further to help our kids than what's happening now. We have critical need areas, no doubt, and we're going to have more abilities to help those kids in critical need areas. Representative Long again strengthened that this is affirmative action is against the law. It's against the 14th Amendment. And Representative Bennett, you weren't here, but I'm acutely aware of our maternal mortality rates in Arkansas. I have been working for years to make them better. Today, we passed an amazing package that we have been working on for years to help maternal health in Arkansas. And I don't want Arkansas just to be better than Mississippi. I want Arkansas to be the best place for women and children to have babies, and I'm working hard to make that happen. That's why I've been working on the midwife bill that I've been doing, because that helps black women more than any others. And that's why I'm working hard, because other states have seen a huge improvement in their health. And I promise you that I will continue to work for all the women in this state. I promise you that for sure. We've been here a long time, but I want to say that the women in this nation have come a long way. And even in other states, I want to real quickly say we act like we're doing something drastic and way out of the whack. But in 1996, California stopped affirmative action. In 1998, the state of Washington stopped affirmative action. Florida banned it in 1999. Michigan banned it in 2006. Nebraska in 2008. Arizona in 2010. New Hampshire in 2012. Oklahoma in 2012. And Idaho in 2020. They all banned affirmative action. This is not something drastic. We are ending affirmative action. We are ending discrimination. We are strengthening our discrimination laws. It's exactly what we are doing. And I'm going to end with this, a little story, because everybody shared a little story. I know y'all are tired, but I promise I talk fast and it won't take more than 5 minutes. But I'm going to tell you a story about somebody, and his name was John Murphy. And he was born in 1934 in the city of Boston. He had an older brother, Eddie, and an older sister, Ann. And unfortunately, when my dad, John Murphy, when he was 10 years old, his daddy left, and his mom did some things she shouldn't have done, but trying to make money, she did. And my dad and his brother and his sister slept in trash cans in the city of Boston, trying to stay warm and not freeze to death. And then they stole money and stole food to survive. And thankfully, all three of those kids ended up in a great Christian home, and my daddy went into the Air Force, and my Uncle Eddie went into the Navy and became a great cook, and then my Aunt Ann became a nurse. There is horrible things happening all over this state to little kids of all different colors, Hispanic kids, white kids, black kids, all those kids, and we're not going to stop helping them. This simply ends affirmative action like other states have done decades ago. And Fred and Ken, I appreciate you guys talking. I appreciate you sharing it, and I promise you we'll sure to make sure we continue to do good things for women. I mean, women are soaring here and the nation. We've got the first woman cabinet member with President Trump and Susie Wiles and his chief of staff, and Kristi Noem is our U.S. Secretary of Homeland Security, and Pam Bondi is our U.S. Attorney General. We've got the first female governor with Sarah Sanders, who's doing an outstanding job, and Leslie Rutledge, our first Lieutenant Governor and Attorney General. We no longer need to be victims. We all need to soar. We've got more women graduating than men. It is time for us to move forward in some great things. And with that, colleagues, I appreciate your time, and I would appreciate a good vote on SB 3, and then let's end discrimination. Thank you.
Representative Bentley is closed for the bill. The question before the House is the passage of Senate Bill 3. Members, we have a pair on the desk. Representative Austin McCullum votes yes. Representative Mark McElroy votes no. This was witnessed and attested to by Representative Ryan Rose. Representative McElroy is a present member. Are there any procedural objections to this pair? Seeing none, please do not vote either of these two voting machines. Prepare the machine, Madam Clerk. Has everyone voted? Has everyone voted? Cast up the ballot, Madam Clerk. The vote of 64 yeas, 26 nays, and 4 present. The bill has passed. It should be 65 yeas. Bill has passed. Members, we're going to skip over the budget calendar for today. Representative Milligan, you're recognized.
Motion.
Recognized for motion.
Pursuant to House Rule 33M, I move we adjourn till Monday afternoon at 1:30.
That's a proper motion. It's non-debatable. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Do I have any announcements from committees? Representative Gonzalez, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The City County Local will meet in 10 minutes, Mac B.
Any other committee announcements? Representative Vaught, you're recognized.
Announcement. Several of y'all have asked me when House Management will be meeting to do some resolutions. We'll meet Monday, 15 minutes upon adjournment.
Seeing no other committee announcements, the desk will remain open as needed for the reading of the bills, and upon completion of the items mailed in the adjourned resolution, the House will be adjourned until 1:30 Monday. Representative